Discover incredible hidden Greek myths. 2 hours of heartwarming, life-changing stories for sleep. Jake stood in the dim light of his father's old workshop, a place that smelled of motor oil and nostalgia. His hands were covered in grease, a stark contrast to the heartache he felt within. At 30, the weight of unpaid bills and a failing home felt heavier than any engine he ever lifted. Every summer, the Harvest Festival brought laughter, but this year, joy seemed just beyond his reach. With his mother's health wavering, Jake felt the gaping pressure of impending loss. A home lost just felt cruelly final as he rummaged through a dusty box at the back of the workshop. A thin cloud of motes danced in the sunbeams piercing through the grimy windows. Inside, he found crumbling pages filled with stories of ancient gods and brave heroes, forgotten Greek myths that once ignited his imagination as a child. A surge of warmth coursed through him, as if the tales were whispering possibilities. Hope flickered in his chest. Driven by a yearning to shine light on the darkness surrounding him, Jake gathered the neighborhood kids for storytelling in the park. Their laughter rang like church bells, reminding him of simpler days. He spoke of Odysseus and his unyielding journey home, of Hercules and his unbreakable spirit. The kids hung on every word, their eyes sparkling with enchantment. With each story, Jake felt more than just a storyteller. He felt like a beacon, a lifeline for the tight-knit community. His father's tough love echoed in his mind. Stand tall, son. Work hard and do what's right. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Among the gathering crowd was Maria, a charming single mother with fierce determination etched on her face. She drew closer as Jake spun his tales, their eyes meeting in fleeting moments filled with unspoken understanding. It was as if her spirit was entwined with his, each sharing their burdens, weaving a tapestry of resilience amidst their struggles. Their bond deepened as they helped each other with their kids, cooking meals, and exchanging stories under the starlit sky. But just as joy seemed tangible again, murmurs of discontent rippled through the community. Allegations of treachery sparked heated conversations, dividing neighbors that had once relied on each other through thick and thin. Jake felt caught in the crossfire. Should he pursue his passion for storytelling, relishing the recognition, or should he stand firm beside those who always lifted him up? With the festival nearing, the stakes grew higher. What would he choose? The road of ambition or the family ties that meant everything? As the shadows grew longer with each passing day, Jake stood at the precipice. Would the lessons from those ancient heroes open a pathway to unity, or would the town fracture under the weight of jealousy and betrayal? The festival loomed, and the heart of his community dangerously hung in the balance. Jake stood at the edge of the park as twilight draped the world in soft shades of purple and gold. He could hear the fading laughter of children and feel the soothing breeze against his sun-kissed skin. But the lightness of the evening was overshadowed by the growing tension in the air around him. The whispers of betrayal, once a distant echo, had grown nearer, heavy with accusations that threatened the harmony he had worked so hard to achieve with the kids and their families. As he turned to leave, Maria appeared beside him, her brows furrowed in concern. "Jake, have you seen the messages floating around? They're saying you've been spinning tales to turn people against each other," she said, her voice steady but laced with worry. He felt his heart falter. Those stories were meant to unite, to heal. That's not true. I just wanted to share something beautiful. His words hung in the air, thin yet full of desperation. He wasn't just fighting rumors. He was fighting for hope, for a sliver of light in the overwhelming darkness threatening his family's future. The Harvest Festival was just days away, and Jake could feel the weight of it pressing against his chest. Would his storytelling persist as a soothing balm, or transform into a trigger for division? As the sun dipped below the horizon, colors exploding in a breathtaking show, he was struck by a sudden thought. Why not use the festival itself to confront these murmurings head-on? I think we need to do something big, he announced, determination dripping from each word. A storytelling session right in the heart of the festival, one that brings everyone together. We'll celebrate the grace of these heroes who face challenges and learn from their journeys. Maria's eyes lit up, her fear giving way to excitement. Let us pull everyone together, make it a community event. If we rally them, we can remind everyone about what matters. And just like that, they began to forge a plan. They reached out to neighbors, inviting them with open arms, reiterating that this wasn't just Jake's journey. It was theirs. Pain and strife were universal, but so were the stories of triumph. Yet beneath the excitement lay threads of apprehension. As they spread the word, some faces brightened, while others grew shadowy, burdened by doubt and resentment. Would the trust they were trying to rebuild be strong enough? The days crawled. Jake spent the time preparing his stories, infusing them with lessons of collaboration and forgiveness. But deep down, the swelling uncertainty brewed like a storm. Would they listen? Would they gather with open hearts? Or would jealousy drown out the shared laughter, creating further rifts that could never be mended? As the festival dawned, colorfully adorned stalls emerged, and laughter filled the air once more. But among the celebration, Jake sensed a flicker of anxiety. He knew the showdown wouldn't be just against the whispers behind closed doors. The real battle was ahead on the platform. Jake stood at the edge of the crowd, his heart pounding in rhythm with the drum lines that echoed across the park. He clasped a worn pouch filled with his treasures, his stories, and with it, he took a deep breath. This was it. But before he could step into the circle of jubilant faces, a figure from the shadows approached him. It was Ben, a longtime friend turned foe, emboldened with accusations that no amount of storytelling could mend. Still playing the hero, Jake? You don't really believe anyone wants to hear what you have to say, do you? This will be your downfall. The weight of those words crushed down on him, but he could feel the warmth of Maria close by. She would stand with him just as so many others would, right? This was supposed to be their moment. His fingers tightened around the pouch, uncertainty mixed with longing swirling inside him as tension thickened. The festival was upon them, but so were the critical choices that would define not only his future but the very fabric of their community. How could he turn this tide? As he raised his voice to begin, the crowd hushed, watching as he battled inner fears. Would courage hold him steady, or would doubt tear him apart before he even shared a word? The moment had come. Jake's voice wavered at first, spilling out those tentative words. Thank you all for being here. Silence enveloped him, every pair of eyes scanning his face for emotions that mirrored their own. He swallowed hard, clenching the pouch tighter, willing its weight to anchor him. What I am about to share goes beyond me. It's about all of us, our stories, our struggles. He paused, scanning the crowd, searching for familiar faces, hoping to draw strength from them. Maria smiled encouragingly, her eyes shining like beacons in the fading light. He took a deep breath and opened the pouch, pulling out a small, crumpled note. These are the words of someone who overcame incredible odds, he said, reading aloud the heartfelt tale of a woman who forged community through adversity. Each word felt like a thread stitching together the fear and uncertainty swirling around him as Jake spoke. He glanced at Ben, still lurking in the shadows. Ben's expression was unreadable, but a flicker of something curiosity, perhaps, danced across his features. The crowd listened closely as Jake wove stories of bravery and resilience, of families coming together and communities rising up against challenges. Slowly, the frowns softened. A shared hum of recognition began to spread through the crowd, like the warming rays of a sunrise easing away the chill of night. Laughter bubbled forth unexpectedly, and even tears slipped down some cheeks, washing away the anger and doubt. Stories are powerful, Jake continued, his voice steadying, filled with urgency and light. They connect us in ways that are often hidden. They remind us that we are not alone. He felt the tremor of support ripple through the crowd. They were feeling it, doubt giving way to hope, and fear overcoming with connection. Maria stood in the forefront, nodding, infectious joy blooming on her face. But somewhere in the back of his mind, he still sensed Ben watching, waiting for this to unravel. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows, Jake dove deeper into another tale. It was about grief and forgiveness, about letting go of resentments that held communities back. In every challenge, there lies an opportunity for connection, he declared, his heart picking up speed. Knowing he had to reach the skeptics as deeply as the believers, he moved to the final story, the one he knew would serve as a mirror, reflecting their collective fears and aspirations. This one is about a bridge, a literal and metaphorical bridge built by those who chose unity over strife. Just as he was about to finish the last powerful line, a stirring in the crowd caught his attention. Murmurs of dissent began to swell again, as more faces turned away, arms crossed. That familiar fear began creeping back in. Would they choose to embrace the warmth or cling to the cold comfort of doubt? Every person here has a story worth telling, Jake implored, raising his voice above the murmurs. And I believe that together, we can build that bridge stronger than mistrust and deeper than division. But as the crowd's response crackled with tension, Jake's heart sank. Was it enough? Had he reached them? Or was Ben's shadow looming too large to escape? Just then, a voice broke through the noise. Jake, this is about more than stories. How do we know we can trust you? It was Sam, one of the vocal critics, standing defiantly at the front. The challenge hung in the air like a palpable weight. Jake's pulse raced, and for a split second he felt raw and exposed. The battleground had sharp edges now. Could he turn this challenge into an opportunity? Would he discover the answer, or would he falter under pressure? The festival's atmosphere shifted abruptly, and he knew he was on the brink of something monumental. Would this be the moment that transformed everything? With the crowd watching, Jake gathered every ounce of courage he had left. What if? He began, unsure of what would come next but certain he needed to respond. What if we built that trust together? The air felt electric as he waited for the response. Would they follow him into the unknown? Would this be the resurgence of faith, or the beginning of the end? The crowd was restless. Jake could hear the whispers circling around him, each one an echo of doubt, every face reflecting uncertainty. He felt the weight of Sam's question pressing down harder than the pouch in his hand. How could he respond in a way that ignited a spark, rather than snuff it out? What if we built that trust together? He repeated, this time with a touch more fervor, hoping to catch the beats of their hearts. So many of us are scared, but fear shouldn't isolate us. It should unite us. Each of us is just one story, and those stories, when woven together, can create a tapestry of hope. He scanned the crowd again, seeking allies. Maria smiled from the front, nodding her head, her enthusiasm a warm glow in the cold air. But Sam and a few others remained rooted in their skepticism. He could feel their eyes probing for weaknesses, desperate to tear down the fragile forward momentum he'd just begun to build. I'm not asking you to take a leap of faith blindfolded. Let us share our truths, however painful or embarrassing they may be, he urged, his voice rising slightly as he aimed to reach the back of the crowd, where Ben still stood a silent watchman under layers of uncertainty. We can create a safe space where every voice matters, where our scars become symbols of our resilience. The silence that followed felt deafening, as if the very air had held its breath. He could see Sam's jaw tighten, and for a moment, fear fluttered in Jake's chest. Were they too far gone? Would they remain trapped in their isolation? I'll go first, he said, surprising even himself. When I lost my father, I felt completely adrift. I couldn't see past my own pain, until I learned to share that grief, to let others in. A few uneasy murmurs rippled through the audience. Jake pressed on, sweat beading at his temples. I found comfort in stories, in telling my truth, and in hearing others' truths. That's how I discovered I was never alone, even in my darkest moments. His heart raced as he laid himself bare, vulnerability spilling into the space between them like a flowing river. What I'm asking is not just for faith in me, but faith in this, the power we hold together. For a moment, he thought he saw something shift in the crowd. Eyes softened, a few shoulders relaxed. It was imperceptible, a tiny crack in the armor of doubt. But still, there was that nagging presence. Ben, with arms crossed stubbornly and an expression so hard to read. "All right then," Sam exclaimed suddenly, her voice cutting through the fragile atmosphere. "But how do we know this isn't just another guy trying to sell us on something? How do we know we won't just end up in the same place we started?" Jake held his breath. It was another challenge, again aimed to push him off balance. But instead of retreating, he felt a fire ignite within him. "Let us commit to openness. Let us share our stories, our struggles right here, right now. You can hold me accountable. We'll build something real together or we'll see it fail. But it'll be our failure, not just mine." The challenge hung in the air, daring the crowd to respond. No more silence, no more hiding. Quietly, Ben stepped forward, breaking the tension that had gripped the scene. "I'll go," he said, his voice nearly a whisper but carrying weight like thunder. Jake's heart thundered in response. Would this be the moment a community began to gather? He could feel a shift thrumming through the crowd, a pulse of potential. And then, just as quickly, the doubt surged back, lingering in the distance as a storm cloud. Where would this lead? Would they allow themselves to connect? Or would they retreat again? Jake steadied himself, ready for whatever came next. "Then let us hear your story," he urged, anticipating the flood of emotions on the horizon, knowing it could change everything or nothing at all. As Ben began to speak, Jake felt the weight of destiny closing in. What would the crowd choose next? Would they seize this moment of vulnerability, or would it slip away, another opportunity lost to fear? Ben's voice trembled at first, but something within him seemed to grow stronger as he continued. "For years I've carried this pain. I lost my brother in a car accident when we were kids. It shattered our family." He paused, looking into the crowd, drawing them in. "I felt like I had to be the tough one, pretend everything was okay. I never talked about it until now." Jake could almost see the walls around Ben tumble down, layer by layer. A couple of people shifted closer, as if drawn to the energy that surged from his raw honesty. Heads nodded, subtle signs of empathy sparking throughout the crowd. "I've spent so long trying to shield myself from feeling," Ben admitted, his voice rising, fueled by something deeper. "But deep down, I know I'm not alone. You're all right here and you've got your struggles. We've been living in our own silos, pretending we're fine when we're not. It's exhausting." With every word, Jake felt the pulse of connection grow. The group was shifting towards something bigger than themselves. They were no longer mere faces but fragments of shared history, reclaiming their voices. Ben continued, "I've hidden, thinking that sharing my burden would make me weak. But I'm ready to stop hiding. I want to feel again. I want for us to feel again." There it was, the moment Jake prayed for. It hung in the air like electricity, palpable and alive. Jake watched as emotions cascaded over the crowd, sparking small murmurs of approval. A few others, inspired by Ben, began to speak. "I lost my mom to cancer," Maria shared, moving closer to Ben. "It took me years to understand how to process that loss. I felt angry for so long." Sam's expression softened, her skepticism cracking. "I've struggled with anxiety for years and felt alone. It's so hard to admit it." The floodgates opened. As if a dam of bottled-up stories had burst, people began to share their truths. Each story wound into another, like a thread in the tapestry they were weaving together, visible in the transformation of their faces, eyes brightening, shoulders relaxing, smiles emerging. Jake felt teary-eyed, not with sorrow, but with hope. This was the healing he envisioned, the path to rebuilding trust. The more they shared, the more the sense of isolation faded. They could see their pain mirrored in the eyes of others. Then, Ben looked deeper into the crowd, eyes searching. "We've all faced our darkness in one way or another, but we have the power to change the narrative. We can learn from one another and lift each other up." He stepped back, allowing the energy to flow freely. Jake took a moment to absorb it, heart swelling with pride. They were becoming a community. The connection was tangible. But just as quickly, doubt whispered again. Would this unity be fleeting? What would they do when real challenges arose outside this moment? Amid the rising emotions, he heard a loud shout from the back. Yeah, but what happens when it gets tough? How do we hold on? A hush fell upon the crowd, all eyes darting toward the source of the voice, the hopeful momentum pausing like a kite caught in a sudden gust. Jake felt a chill wash over him. This was it, the real test. Would they embrace their vulnerability together, or would the fear come crashing back? He could feel the uncertainty swirl. Let us talk about that, he urged, staring into the sea of worried faces. How will we stay united when the world tries to tear us apart? Let us tackle that question right now. The question hung in the air like a stone, heavy yet electric. Would they grapple with the uncertainty or shy away? Jake held his breath, waiting for the next words, knowing that in this moment, their future was at stake. The vulnerability of the moment settled like a blanket over the crowd. Jake scanned the faces, some wide with fear, others twisted in thought. Then, from the right side of the gathering, a voice broke through the silence. I think we need each other, said a woman with deep lines etched around her eyes. Her name was Elena. I've watched friends walk away when things got hard. It's scary, sharing your pain, but sharing my story here I feel stronger. She took a deep breath, courage pouring from her words. I refuse to be that person anymore. I want to fight for us all. A swell of agreement rippled through the gathering. Jake felt the energy shift, the fear transforming into a quiet strength as more people spoke up, one after the other. Being open is terrifying, said Sam again, her voice trembling slightly but steadying with each word. But living in that fear, feeling like I have to keep it all inside, it was ruining me. I don't want to pretend anymore. The crowd was nodding along, catching fire. Each confession stoked the flames of an emerging spirit of resilience. Let's make a plan, a man in the back shouted. Jake recognized him. It was Tyler, someone who had always kept to himself. How do we check in on each other? It's all lovely now, but when the ugly hits, who will we turn to? Jake's heart raced. It was the call to action they needed. Great point, Tyler, he encouraged. We should create a support group, a way to make sure we keep these connections alive. A wave of murmurs spread through the crowd. Ideas began to bubble up, suggestions passing swiftly. We could have weekly meetings, Maria suggested, looking at Ben. If we put it on the calendar, that would help. Or a group chat, another woman chimed in. That way we can still reach out when things get tough. As the ideas flowed, Jake marveled at the transformation. People were leaning forward, their eyes bright and eager, united in a shared commitment. They were no longer just individuals with burdens. They were a community poised to support one another in the darkest of times. What if we create a buddy system? Ben threw in, his voice solid. Each of us can be accountable to one another. Know that someone will be there, even when it feels hard to be raw. A buzz of excitement surged again. Yes, this was it. The doubts Jake had felt earlier seemed to dissipate like morning fog lifting. They were on the brink of something real, something that could change their lives, but even more crucially, change how they faced their struggles. As the conversation grew more animated, Jake observed the group share smiles and nods, their fears lifting, replaced with laughter, shouts of encouragement, and hands clasping one another. But amid all this newfound strength, a lower voice caught everyone's attention again. What happens when we fail? It was Sam, her tone quieter now. What if we can't always hold on? A hush enveloped the crowd once more. Her question hung in the air, heavy yet profound. Jake felt his heart twist, a haunting truth lurking beneath the hope. How would they cope with failure? What if the darkness pressed in again? Jake took a moment to gather his thoughts, ready to respond. But he knew this wasn't something he could answer alone. They needed to tackle this as a group, face it with the collective courage they had all sparked in each other. Let us figure that out together, he urged, meeting Sam's concerned gaze. We have to be honest. What does support look like when we stumble? Not if, but when. And as they collectively turned to one another, uncertainty flickering in their eyes, Jake felt a surge of commitment. They had come this far, and this was only the beginning. Would they find resilience in their vulnerability? Or would fear still overshadow their progress? The weight of their shared journey loomed ahead, and Jake stood on the precipice of hope and uncertainty, ready to dive deeper into their emotions together. Jake looked around at the group, each face illuminating a blend of hope and apprehension. He could see the gears turning, the deep seam of worry threading through the determined bravery that was building within their hearts. It struck him that they all shared the same fear of failure, that dreaded feeling of not being enough, of letting each other down. But what was failure, really, in a journey like theirs? A woman, Clara, stood with trembling hands clasped in front of her. Maybe we should agree on some reminders, something we can tell ourselves when things get tough? Her voice was soft but clear, like a soothing balm for the moment. We could find a mantra or something to hold on to. That's a great idea, Jake enthused, feeling an electric current of hope run through the crowd again. What could we say to keep us grounded? Something we can repeat when doubt sneaks up on us. Let us brainstorm. One by one, they began to share words and phrases that resonated deep within their souls. We're stronger together, Elena offered, her eyes shining. The struggle is real, but so is our strength, Sam added, emboldened by the support around her. Jake felt a rush of emotion as he listened. It was incredible how sharing their fears transformed their pain into a collective strength, a lighthouse guiding them through the fog. Together, they were sculpting hope from vulnerability, shaping their words into a foundation they could lean on during storms. Gradually, more voices chimed in. This too shall pass, Tyler suggested. When we fall, we rise, came in from Maria, her eyes fierce with purpose. Laughter began to bubble up as they morphed their heavier phrases into more playful ones. Rain is just clouds crying, one man joked, earning a chuckle from the group. And we are the sunshine. It was incredible to see how humor could lighten the heaviness of their conversation. But beneath the laughter lay sincere recognition of the difficult battles each person had faced. Moments that had darkened their hearts, but were now bringing them closer as the gathering began to disperse. Jake took a moment before stepping away. Let us put our agreed words somewhere visible, he suggested excitedly. Somewhere we can all see and remember what we promised ourselves tonight. The group nodded, aligning in purpose. Jake felt a sense of belonging, a warmth that spread through him. Together they were not just a group. They were relatives forged in the fire of shared stories. Each individual held a piece of the other's heart. But as they prepared to leave, Jake caught a glimpse of Sam looking pensive. What if we don't rally together every time? She muttered almost to herself. What if we drift back to our old ways? The question landed like a stone in the water. Jake knew there was still a vast ocean of uncertainty ahead. They may be sharing strength now, but what about those days when the tides turned against them? Then we'll adapt, Ben replied, settling his hand on her shoulder gently. We'll remember to reach for each other. As long as we stay open, we'll always have each other's backs. The words sunk deep, echoing within the close-knitted group. Yet, Jake couldn't shake the tightness in his chest. He felt fragments of doubt clinging to him. Would their promises hold firm when the world pressed too hard against them? Some faces lit up with newfound determination, while others swirled with uncertainty. It was a fragile balance shifting underfoot. Jake glanced back at Sam, running a hand through his hair. Let us meet back here, he suggested, and check in. See how we're doing. We can take turns sharing the tough stuff which don't always come out in the light. As they all nodded, Jake felt the energy in the air abruptly shift. They were standing at the beginning of something profound, yet no one knew which way that would steer them or how the path would unfold. With the darkness looming behind them and the promise of light ahead, he felt the pulse of hope. What would they discover next? Would their courage spark flames of transformation, or would those flames flicker and die in the harsh winds of reality? The uncertainty loomed large, and yet the heart of their commitment thudded like a drum, drawing them into the unknown together. Jake stood alone for a moment after the others had walked away, staring at the empty chairs where hope had once danced. The laughter still echoed in his mind, but it was punctuated by the weight of Sam's question. What if they crumbled under the pressure? What if, in the shadow of real life, their promises faded like the sunlight dipping below the horizon? He shook his head and started to turn away but paused. There was a flicker of movement. Clara stood by the door, visibly hesitating. When she saw Jake looking, she mustered up a small smile. "Hey, do you mind if I join you?" she asked, her voice wavering slightly. "Of course not." Jake felt a rush of relief at her presence. "I was just thinking about Sam." Clara stepped closer, her eyes softening as they filled with understanding. "Yeah, I get it. It's a scary thought. I senti it? More than scary." He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "I mean, what if this doesn't stick? What if the world kicks us again before we're ready?" "I think that's all part of the journey," Clara responded gently. "But in the end, it's about finding our way back to each other, no matter what happens. That's the key, right? Knowing we're not alone." "I hope so." His heart began to swell with her kind words. "But will that be enough?" Clara looked down for a moment, deep in thought. She said slowly, "I think we all face situations where we felt too weak to fight. Fear can paralyze us. But tonight felt different. We opened up, shared, and laughed. That feels huge. We just need to remember the strength we found here." Jake nodded, feeling the warmth of her belief coat his own shaky resolve. "It does feel different. There's something building between us." "Exactly." Clara placed a hand over her heart. "We share a bond now, right? So let us carry this moment with us. Maybe we can add new layers every time we meet up. Keep stacking those reminders until they become a fortress." He smiled, the image of their collective strength swelling within him. "A fortress," his voice trailed off as he pondered the possibility. "Exactly. And when doubt creeps in, we'll all remember we have each other. It's about building a support system that catches us before we fall." She beamed. Feeling buoyed by her passion, Jake suddenly felt a sense of urgency. "What if we create a group chat?" he suggested. "So, everyone can stay connected, share not just the struggles, but also the little victories. Could serve as a reminder." Clara lit up, her eyes sparkling. "That's brilliant. If someone's having a tough day, we can lift them up with our mantras. Or if someone aces a presentation at work, we can cheer them on." They stood there, buoyed by excitement, imagining the possibilities. Slowly, the acceptance filled the cracks of their fears, gluing their hopes together. But just then, a sharp, sudden sound interrupted their reverie. A loud crash echoed from the alley outside. Both Jake and Clara jumped, exchanging worried glances. "What was that?" Clara's voice was tight. "I don't know." Jake's instincts kicked in, curiosity mixed with worry. "Let us check it out." As they stepped into the night, a chill ran up Jake's spine. The unknown felt like it was on the doorstep. Would their collective courage endure against whatever awaited them? The air was thick with tension as they edged closer, darkness shadowing their every step. What if this was a test no one had prepared them for? As they approached the alley, he took a deep breath. An unsettling thought teased the corners of his mind. Would the journey they'd begun truly prepare them for the challenges ahead? The alley morphed into a mystery waiting to unfold. But would they be ready for whatever lay hidden in the darkness? The alley loomed ahead, shadows weaving in and out like secrets waiting to be revealed. Jake and Clara exchanged a glance that spoke volumes. This wasn't just an ordinary night. It felt like the universe was testing them, pushing them into the unknown. As they turned the corner, the smell of garbage mixed with the faint scent of rain on the pavement. Jake squinted into the darkness, heart thumping loudly against his chest. "Do you think it was an accident?" he whispered, barely able to hear his own thoughts over the pounding of his heart. Clara took a step forward, her hand brushing against the rough brick wall for support. "Could be," she replied softly, but her eyes betrayed her uncertainty. They edged closer, straining to see what lay ahead. Then, amidst the shadows, Jake spotted a crumpled figure on the ground. Panic surged through him. "Hey, are you okay?" he called out, the words slicing through the night like a lifeline. The figure stirred, slowly rising to lean against the alley wall. It took a moment for Jake's eyes to adjust, but when they did, He recognized the man, a local street artist named Tony. He often painted vibrant murals around town. "Oh man, I fell over my own feet." Tony laughed weakly, but the humor didn't reach his eyes. "Can't believe I scared you guys." Relief flooded Jake, but it was soon replaced by concern as he took a closer look at Tony's face. It was bruised, his shirt torn. "What happened?" Jake asked, his voice tense with concern. "Just a little tussle with some drunks," Tony muttered, shaking his head. "They didn't like my art. Told me I should stick to the shadows." Clara stepped closer, her gaze softening. "Your art is beautiful, Tony. People love it. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise," she said, her voice imbued with warmth. Tony gave a weak smile. "Thanks. I appreciate you guys." As they helped him to his feet, a flicker of compassion sparked in Jake's chest. Watching Tony's struggle ignited something within him, a reminder of why they all needed each other and why their journey mattered. "We need to help him," Jake said, locking eyes with Clara. "He needs our support." Clara nodded fervently. "Absolutely. Let us get you cleaned up, Tony. Let us find somewhere safe." They helped Tony lean against Clara for support while Jake looked around for a way out of the alley. Suddenly, an idea hit him like a bolt of lightning. What if we could gather supplies for artists like Tony? Something that could bring the community together. Clara's eyes lit up. "Yes, we could organize an art supply drive. It would create a space for everyone to share their creativity, workshop ideas, and unite people." Jake interjected, his excitement growing. "We could start small just like we did tonight. We'd be showing people that they're not alone." Tony watched them with a mix of gratitude and inspiration. "You guys are onto something big," he said, his voice trembling with emotion. "Art is about connection. It's about pushing through and shining light into the darkness." Jake felt his heart swell. This wasn't just about them anymore. This was about creating a ripple effect throughout their community. Suddenly, the weight of their earlier fears started to lift, replaced by a new kind of urgency. What started as a simple conversation had ignited a passion that could spark change. Could they really make a difference? Just then, the sound of footsteps interrupted their conversation, loud and hurried. Jake turned, his pulse racing. "Who's that?" Clara looked worried. "We should get out of here." But Jake felt a strange pull. "Wait, what if this moment leads us to something bigger?" As shadows moved closer, he faced Clara, daring to hope. Would fear hold them back, or would they step forward, ready to embrace the unknown and the warmth of their intertwined destinies? Jake felt a rush of adrenaline as the footsteps echoed through the alley. Clara's grip tightened on his arm, her eyes wide with uncertainty. But Jake caught a glimmer of defiance in his heart. He had just begun to understand the power of connection, the strength they found in one another's stories, and he couldn't back down now. "Stay close," he whispered, scanning the alley as tension crackled in the air. The shadows were closing in, and he knew this could be another test of their courage, an opportunity to stand firm amidst the fear. From behind the corner emerged a small group of young people, their laughter ringing out like distant bells, but it wasn't all jovial. Elevating the voice of one of them cut through the fog of apprehension. "Did you mess with Tony again?" a girl shouted, waving dismissively. They were the group known for their trouble resisting change, sneering at creativity. But Jake felt the tightness in his chest ease when he saw the girl had a spray can in her hand, adorned with colors that teased at the dreams this community held. "Let us see if he still makes his work in the shadows," one of the boys taunted, and Jake's blood boiled. They were taking aim against everything he and his neighbors had worked tirelessly to protect. "Hey, back off," Jake called, his voice louder than before, infused with a strength he didn't know he had. "What you're doing is wrong. Tony has every right to create. We all deserve that space." The juxtaposition of anger and willfulness settled around him like a shield. Clara moved closer, her strength anchoring his fire. "Why don't you try supporting him instead?" Clara added, her tone fierce but fair, eyes unswerving. "Art speaks truth. It can heal. You'll never know if you don't let go of your ignorance." An unexpected silence hovered, and for a moment, it felt like the world stopped. The troublemakers exchanged glances, weighing their options, and Jake could sense change rustling in the atmosphere. "What are you, his family?" One of them snickered, but there was an uncertain edge now. "No," Jake replied firmly, shaking his head. "We're a community, and that means having each other's backs. We stand together or we fall apart. You want unity?" As more footsteps approached, the tension shifted even more. Jake turned to Tony, who stood with a mixture of surprise and hope flashing across his face. "Let us show them what we're made of," Jake insisted, breathing deeply to steady himself. "Come with us and show how much beauty we can create." With an inspired gesture, he turned back to the group of troublemakers, his voice steady. "Let us grab some paint, and you can join us if you want. Help us bring color to this place rather than ruin it. Be part of something bigger. It's time we all contribute." Jake could feel the vulnerability of extending that offer, yet he knew it came from a place of shared understanding from the stories they had embraced, the triumphs and struggles interwoven into this fabric of life. Those once taunting eyes flickered, hesitated, then softened. Meanwhile, Clara's instinct kicked in. "Let us set a date for our art supply drive," she suggested, eyes alight with excitement. "A day of creation, to share stories through art. What if we made a mural that incorporates all our stories? The struggles, the joys, we each have a color to add." The energy shifted in the alley, sounding like a gentle breeze turning into a windstorm of enthusiasm. Jake felt it, too, a laughter of possibility breaking through earlier tensions. "What if we worked together?" one of the girls from the original group said. That statement hung in the air like an invitation to a dance, echoing the sentiment they all needed: togetherness. Jake smiled widely. "Exactly. No more shadows, only light. This will be the moment we decide to lift each other up." As the initial dissenters echoed their agreement, Jake's spirit soared. The group bound forward, unexpected laughter spilling into the air around them like sunlight pouring through a torn canvas. Each participant was ready to seek connections, find forgiveness, and ignite creativity, a shared dream that could elevate the community, creating vibrant murals that would tell their stories long after the paint dried. And then, in the heart of the celebration, amidst the laughter and newfound bond, Jake knew that this moment represented change. The shift they had long sought was ripe and ready, waiting to spread beyond the alleys and into their very lives. Transformations always start in small places with small acts of courage. This was their small act that could spark monumental shifts. Together, they learned that the essence of unity lay not only in encouragement, but also in authentic acknowledgement of each other's pains and joys. Hand in hand, heart to heart, they would build their futures one colorful brushstroke at a time. As the sun began its descent, painting the sky in hues of optimism, Jake looked around at his comrades, his family forged in truth. "Let us commit," he said, meeting their gazes one by one. "From this day forth we'll remember, we're stronger together. Let us tell our stories, every single one. Who we are, who we can be." The promise resonated within each heart, bonding them into a collective hope that could withstand any storm. And as they turned to leave the alley, laughter transformed into a symphony of connection, a celebration of what it meant to be human, to fight for art, for love, and for each other. A new dawn awaited them beyond their shadows, painting a life rich with colors and stories brimming with life. Now is the time to make a change in our hearts and communities. Dive into the beauty of connection and transformation. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support for heartfelt transformations. Comment below your feelings and reactions about this ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to feel the power of unity and storytelling.